lot of the things I do is because I want to try and eat healthier. I want my boys to eat healthier. And one of the biggest parts of that is meal prepping, because if I don't have but 5 minutes, we're gonna eat some kind of junk instead of a good, healthier meal. So on the weekends, typically, tomorrow's Easter Sunday, so today is Saturday, and I will be doing some meal prepping, and I wanted to share a couple of the recipes that I'm going to be using this week. One of the things I'm going to make is some food for the kids now. I'm going to make some sourdough pancakes. Then I'm also going to make some sourdough pie crust for chicken pot pie later this week. So I'm going to mix 2 recipes into this one. I'll be sure to call them out so they don't get confusing. I'll do them one at a time. So the first thing I'm going to make is I'm going to mix together some sourdough pancakes. I'm actually going to make these with some scrambled eggs and things for us to eat now. It's a little later in the day than breakfast, but breakfast is our favorite food. I might also have to feed my starter while we do this video, just for the sake of getting more discard, because this is all I've got. So the first thing I'm going to do for sourdough pancakes is 190 grams of flour. I just use an all-purpose. I'm not too picky on my flour. 190 grams. 196 is all right. Then we're going to do 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Now, I am very type A on everything else in my life. Like, I'm very picky about my house being clean and, you know, all of the ways that one would be type A. Except for cooking. For some reason, cooking just is not that big of a deal to me. I almost did a tablespoon instead of a teaspoon. So I kind of do some relative measuring. I'm not too picky about it. So these are heaping over a little bit. That's why a lot of times I'm saying that it's not a big deal, because it's really not. So this is just like a pinch of salt.
And trays, and bubbles, and eggs, and treats.
This is going to be 24 grams of sugar.
And pinwheels.
As always, I will put the recipe for this in the description box so you have it. So I never expect anyone to go clicking around all over the place. I want it right there for you. So that's all the dry ingredients together. Now I'm going to mix together the wet things. First thing here is 240 grams of milk. I know this seems like a lot, but trust me. First time I made these, I was like, wait, 240? It's 240. 240 grams of milk, 240 grams of discard. Yeah, I think I'm gonna need some more of this.
So, I'm going to separate one.
So that ended up being 200. Can you see that on the screen? That's 257 is what that says. It does not say 240, but I'm not fishing it out of there, so it'll be fine. Next is 4 tablespoons or half a stick of butter melted. 4. It's not all the way melted. There's still a little chunk in there, but that's okay. And then 2 eggs. I save my eggshells. I like to save all my eggshells because I like to cook them down, like make them really dry in the oven, mix them up in a blender, and then I'll either feed them to my worms or I will just put them in my dirt as a calcium boost for my garden. So I always save my eggshells. So this is my pancake batter. I like to let it rest for a little bit. That gives my skillet time to warm up because I haven't even brought it out yet. I don't know, I just feel like things mix together a little bit better whenever I let it rest for a minute before I start cooking with it. The next thing I'm gonna make real quick is my sourdough pie crust. Of course, I'll add this recipe in the description box, but this is one that I've made enough and I like it enough that I've put it into my cookbook. There's a lot of recipes I need to put in my cookbook still, but it's on the list of things to do, right? And this actually needs to hang out in the fridge for a while for you after you've mixed it together, so you can't cook it with it same day because you really need those ingredients to come together, and so they need to rest in the fridge for at least 24 hours. So I'm gonna make the pie crust today to be able to make chicken pot pie later this week. So for this one, again, we have our scale out. This one calls for 250 grams of flour. Again, all purpose is fine. I always either over or under. Oh well. 2 sticks of cold butter. 2. Now, the reason you want it cold is because things get flakier. And I've talked about this a lot in my cinnamon roll recipe video, where it is good for the butter chunks to not be melted whenever you're mixing the dough, because that's going to give you a flakier product once you fully cook with it. So I'm going to chop these up. I'm going to chop up this butter in an area where you'll be able to see. There we go. And what I do is I kind of crosshair it. So I go at it at an angle. And the intention is for your butter to be pea-sized-ish. So I do it cross one way, and then I cross the other way. I try to get them to all stay. Now, this doesn't exactly get things pea-sized, but what it does is gets it small enough to where as I'm rolling out my dough later when I make my pie, or my chicken pot pie, I can just squish the big pieces when I find them. So that's one. And it calls for 2. So again, just crosshairs. I don't think crosshairs is the right word there. Crisscross. Next for this recipe is a teaspoon of salt. Yeah, Mommy's in here making a mess. Teaspoon of salt. Teaspoon of sugar. There's a little boy down here that would love to be involved. The next ingredient we need, I need a big spoon for this. It calls for 250, right? Is that right? 250 grams of sourdough. So I'm going to cross my fingers that there's enough in here. I need another 50. So I've got my starter. All right, come on up here. Come on. I've got my starter that I fed yesterday. And let's just admire the bubbles for a moment. This rose pretty high last night and it started to go back down, which means that it probably does need another feed soon. I'm going to steal quite a bit of it out of here, but it just looks so good. I feel like I'm probably going to show, I'm going to start calling this a bubble shot. We're going to do bubble shots every time we cook with sourdough just because it is fun to see this active culture in here, okay? I think it's cool, all right? So I need another 50 grams. I need a spoon. Please don't touch. Do you see a cute little boy in there? Do you see? Hang on. I gotta pick a spoon. Mommy needs more spoons. Also, in my cinnamon roll, we do it now. You made me laugh so ridiculous. Like, also my sourdough video, you see me break my favorite spoon, and I have yet to buy new ones. Okay, so 50 more grams. No, sir. There we go. And I will, there's still quite a bit in here. So the way I feed this, and I'll go ahead and do that in this video too, is I only need a half a cup, so we'll still have some discard to use. All right. All right. Hang on, let's make room for you, okay? You ready? That's where he wants to be. All right, have a seat. Oh, good job. Good job. All right, here we go. Here we go. I say I want us to eat better, and then I put the baby on the counter and hand him cookies. Maybe they just want me to eat better. I worry less about what they eat because they're kids. It's okay. I don't want to restrict them from everything, you know. And this ends up being really shaggy. It's actually hard to get it to come together really well, but that's not a problem. That's the intention. Because like I said, this needs to go into the fridge and rest for a bit where it will truly come together for you before you can use it. When I find bigger chunks of butter in here while I'm doing this good stir, I'll work out some frustration and break up those larger pieces. So, this is pretty shaggy. Now, technically, this recipe is a double batch, but I like clearly I like bread. So I like my chicken pot pie breading to be pretty thick. And I justify it because it's gut healthy because of microbes in the sourdough and all that, right? So this is pretty chunky. I'm going to actually put it in a freezer bag and then put it in the fridge. I have seen people try to knead this a little bit as it's done here in the other recipes I've found, but I just don't even mess with all that. I knead it a little bit once I get it in the bag. I've also seen where folks just put this in saran wrap instead, but I'm out of saran wrap, so freezer bag it is, y'all. So this is my pot pie filling that I just pulled out of the freezer. So I will probably do a short video next time I make the filling because I do a double batch. I make one, I put the other one in the freezer. So it's a little bit of food preppy too. But it's got red potatoes and peas and things like that in here. And so what I'll do is one day this week, I'll mix up my dough together. Whenever it's come together a little bit more, I'll throw this filling in here and it'll actually be a really fast dinner. When I go to cook with this later this week, I'll probably do a short video on it. If it's still not coming together great, I just simply add more sourdough discard to it, and it makes it come together a little bit more. I really like the sourdough flavor, so if I have to add more, I don't worry about it too much. Really, it's just to get it to come together in order to make a dough. So this, as well as my frozen filling, are both about to go in the fridge because this is going to thaw and this is going to chill, and then they'll be ready to make chicken pot pie probably on Monday. Oh, did you get it? Good job. Yeah. Yeah. What is that, huh? So while we're here, I'm going to feed my starter real quick. To feed my starter, I get a half a cup and I try to heap it a little bit. I get a little bit more than a half a cup of the existing starter. I get to use a fresh jar today. This is going to be my discard. This is what I use for things like cinnamon rolls, pie crust, pancakes, crackers. I make all kinds of stuff with this discard. I'm really hating not using my favorite spoon for this. I've got to go buy more spoons. Got to. One of the most important skills I've learned in life is how to clean while you cook. Now that this has been resting for a minute, it's got some good bubbles going on in there. So, this will make for some really good pancakes. Now I want to mention that it's pretty rare that y'all are going to see me call out where I've gotten a recipe from. And that's not because I'm trying to commit plagiarism. It's because I'll typically find a recipe and I'll tweak it. So the original pancake recipe I had, I think it called for less butter and I had more. My sourdough recipe calls for, I think it called for something else and I nixed it. So I'm not going to say that nobody ever makes their stuff like I do, but all of the recipes that I've found, other than my Paula Deen banana pudding that I like to make, otherwise I'm always tweaking recipes that I find. A clean jar. I'm going to add this half cup of existing starter back into this jar. I'm going to get room temperature, a little bit warm water in here. And with this, I like to do a little bit less than half a cup. Now the reason I want to do a warmer water is because I feel that helps my starter rise a little better. Because if it's cold in my eyes, the water is ice cold, it's going to take a little while for this to rise. And of course, if the water is too hot, you're going to kill your culture. The intention here is a little bit more than a half cup of flour. But I've been doing this and y'all couldn't see. My bad, y'all. But actually what I do here is I don't even measure this. I do this with my heart till the ancestors tell me to stop. But basically I just mix this until I get a consistency that I like. I like my starter to be pretty thick whenever I'm trying to get a rise, because I think some would call this a dry feed because it is not very watery at all. But this is always how I feed it, because it seems to do its best rise when it's got a really thick consistency like this. So this is exactly how I like. On the first try, measured with the my heart, the ancestors, whatever. But this is going to chill on the counter, and it'll probably be all the way up here to the top of the jar tomorrow morning. And this discard just goes back in the fridge. Okay, things are getting pretty warm here. So I'm going to pour out, I like to use a measuring cup for this. That's a pancake. Now what I do with this is I wait for bubbles to pop up in the middle of the pancake, and that's how I know it's ready. I like to milk a little, I like to mix a little bit of milk with my scrambled eggs, and I love to, I'm going to see if I can get it to do it. I love to see if I can get it in the egg. Oh, I did. You see that one egg filled up? Oh, and then it busted. Man, that was pretty satisfying. My boys can eat a dozen eggs a day if I let them. One day, maybe I'll get to make some videos about getting chickens. I think it would help me financially for my kids to be able to go get their own stinking eggs from the backyard. So, bubbles are happening in the middle of this pancake. I feel like it's a little too soon to flip, but I'm going to flip it anyway, y'all. No, we did all right. We did all right. You know, I like to joke that pancakes are like marriages and you throw the first two out. But it looks like this one's gonna be all right today. What I try to do now that I've mixed up my eggs with my milk is I don't touch them. I like them pretty fluffy, and if you get to messing with them too much, they won't be very fluffy. So I typically try to walk the heck away from the stove at this point, because if I don't, I am going to stir them and they need to be left alone. I can tell that these are starting to cook on the bottom because the color's changed a little bit. So now all I will do is just get as much as I can off the bottom without jostling it too much. I'll do like a swipe of scrapes. I'll do like a pass of scrapes every now and then I'll leave it alone. Bubbles in the middle. When they're almost done, sprinkle some cheese on here because my boys love cheesy eggs. So on the first flip, I look for bubbles. When I've already flipped it, I look for it to start getting fluffier. This one's a little bit of guesswork, but when it starts getting fluffy, I'll flip it over and see just how brown it's looking on this side, and that usually tells me. So this recipe makes about 8 normal sized pancakes. I've made mine pretty big. This one's like a monster. But I make mine bigger because I really like to be able to just simply cut them in half. So this is like a, small plate. And they're about the same size as the plate. And these I've made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these really big ones. But they'll last me, I'm glad I had that rag there. They'll last me a lot this week. These will be pretty handy to have already made this week while I'm working, because when the kids get hungry, I'll be able to just give them a pancake really quick and they'll be good. So I've made pancakes and eggs. I make eggs several times throughout the week too, but this counts as a little bit of meal prep too, because whatever food I can have on hand to give them quickly while I'm in between meetings and things with work is just a huge lifesaver. All right, this one's got bubbles in the middle. This one's really big. I probably could have made 2 pancakes out of this. Flip it. I try to flip them slowly so they don't sling butter and batter everywhere. That is sourdough pancakes and sourdough pie crust that I've made this morning. If you want to see my recipe on how I also make sourdough cinnamon rolls sometimes, or sourdough tortillas, I'll put those links right here.